Today, NZXT announced its new Kraken line of coolers. This is the X42. This is the 140mm version of the cooler. They've also got a 240 and a 280. Prices are all over the place, but the 140 model that we have here, the X42, is priced at $130. X52 is $150. That's 240mm rad, and then if you got extra money, $160 for the 280. This thing is primarily interesting because it's got a full RGB LED controllable backlight behind the pump plate, and this does have an infinity mirror in it as well. So it is one of the most aesthetically advanced, I suppose, liquid cooling solutions out there on the market, at least for a CLC, but we'll talk about that more in a moment. First, all of this coverage is brought to you by Antec and their new Cube Mini ITX case designed by Razer, which supports full custom loop liquid cooling. We're still waiting for the other two units, the 240 and the 280, to come in, but today we're going to tear this one down and look at the internals because it's actually a bit different from previous Asetek pumps. This is a Gen 5 Asetek pump, and a lot of this design, as we understand it, was actually by NZXT. So to my knowledge, this is the first Asetek product in the consumer side of the market that has a PCB and electronics inside of it that were fully designed by the partner. In this case, that's NZXT, rather than by Asetek. So that's new. The LEDs, as I said, are also new. They've also kind of gotten a bit smarter with the cables. This is all modular cables. If you've noticed, unlike the previous Kraken coolers where you had a huge web of cables sticking out of the thing and they were not optional, now you can connect or disconnect, including this USB cable. This is a mini USB, and that goes straight to a computer, so you can plug it into a laptop even and still control the LEDs even though it's not actually cooling anything. Pump's powered by this. There's a SATA power connector, so your SATA power, as you would use for an SSD or hard drive, you plug the SATA power in there, and that's how this is powered. But that is it for the connections. And then other features sort of on the outside before we dive into the teardown. These tubes, you can see now, swivel. This did not happen with the 4th gen Asetek pumps or the 4.5 gen. This is a 5th gen feature, and that's done just really by having an elbow here, and then there's probably, we'll see when we tear it down, probably another elbow in there like that, which would allow this action. Other than that, it's the normal barbs. It's got fancier tubing, I suppose, but it's still the rubber tubes that Asetek uses. The closest comparable competitors on the market would be Corsair. So they've got the H100i V2. That is also a Gen 5 pump. And then I have to look at my notes here. There's an H115i with a Gen 5 Asetek pump. But this is much different. And that's, in one way, just the tubes. They don't come straight out of the top of the thing. They come out of the back and then up. And then also the LEDs and all that are completely new. So let's tear it down. This is the Kraken X42 model. You can see we've got the bottom, just as always would be. It's got pre-applied thermal paste, your copper cold plate, the rest of the bottom bracket there, and then your mounting. So we're going to start with unscrewing 4 of the outside screws. I haven't taken one of these apart. Obviously, it's brand new, so we will we'll learn as we go. And just a quick note, if you think about doing something like this yourself, just know going into it, you're probably destroying your cooler. You could technically probably refill these. Oh, that is a giant screw. But I don't know that it would be too successful. I've never tried to refill a closed loop. It is just propylene glycol in there, though. Okay. So standard cold plate, copper cold plate. With the removal of those screws, we can now pull this apart. A lot of foam padding in there. No liquid yet, so that's good. There we go. There's a better view of the inside. So foam padding. This gray thing sticking up is actually, if we wash this off, I think you will see that it is probably a diode of some kind covered in a ton of thermal paste. Yes. So this is actually a diode. It sticks way up and it goes through the inside of this. You get this stuff out of the way. So this is going into this hole that's also got thermal paste everywhere. That, as I understand it, should go straight into the liquid. So this diode should actually be able, it's a thermocouple, it should actually be able to read the temperature of the liquid, and it goes way in there. So that's actually theoretically good news, because on this particular model, all the new Krakens, you can control the pump speed and the fan speed independently if you wanted to do such a thing. But that's the first part of this taken apart. I don't know where these cables connect, if we're going to be able to disconnect them or not. But we can try, I guess. I think we'd have to get in under here to take them apart. And there are 3 more screws in here. So unfortunately for us, these wires are soldered on each end, which means there's no good way to disconnect them without destroying them. Do I have wire cutters up here? Sorry guys. Brand new cooler. And it's ruined. But yeah, we got to see how it works. And I've got others coming in for testing. So this will educate us more in the long run. What we've got here is the diode sticking up that goes into the lower chamber to test the liquid temperatures. The cables that were soldered here are for the LEDs and power, things like that. This PCB is pretty complex, actually. This is designed by NZXT, not by Asetek, so that is interesting and new. Let's take this apart. Okay, talk about that in a moment. So for the PCB, because this is the main point of interest, basically a small wafer, cheap PCB in terms of just the thickness, but you don't need a thick, like, overclocking PCB. That'd be silly. So what we have is an RGB LED controller of some kind, and then on this end, which is what shines through this thing here with the infinity mirror effect, and there's some LED light tubes in there I'll talk about later. So on this side, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, is it 8? 3, 6, 8. At least 8 LEDs in this circle. Some of them are side flare type LEDs, but those are the main ones in the center. And then on the other side, oh yeah, we've got your power ground, all that, 12 volt. On the other side, you can see the USB connector, the SATA connector, the diode, and then the controller, which is STM32, if anyone cares to look that up. And that is an F103C8T6 with a bunch of other things in there. MYS 604, something like that. So that's the controller. The LEDs all controlled through here. It's a pretty complex little board for a liquid cooler. This is the cap that sits between the pump and the infinity mirror. All goes like this, something like that anyway. And then the part to talk about here, I suppose, is just the mirror. So this is pretty basic stuff. Most of you probably know how it works. One mirror on the outside, another one lower down, and it creates the effect that there's multiple strips of light in there. And then you can actually this is the whole ensemble right here. You can just move it around. Does it come out though? That'd be cool. Cool. That's kind of neat. So there's your NZXT logo with one of the mirrors behind it and with a light tube. So there's one light tube, and then it just looks like a bunch of them because, again, the mirrored finish on each side. So that's what we got internally. For the actual hardware, here's another PCB. This is the base PCB. It's the simpler one. This is the one that does all the heavy logic with the LEDs, and it is actually pretty complex, as you'll see in the software when we review these things. This is the one from Asetek, but it is, again, all kind of designed by NZXT with this particular product. So that's the base PCB. You'd find that in pretty much any Gen 5 pump. Might have some modifications, I'm not positive. But let's see if we can start taking this apart, find out what's under there. Ultimately, we'll have to take the cold plate out to see how the liquid flows and things like that. Okay, so there goes that PCB. that thing is very tiny, very thin. Not much to talk about there. Here's your motor. This one's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 little coils in it. So I don't know if it's an 8-pole or what, but it's pretty powerful looking magnetic motor. Should be using a bigger screwdriver head for this, but you get the idea. This comes out. I can actually see the liquid in there. I don't know if that's visible. There it is. So there's your liquid. This screw's got a rubber stopper on it to prevent it from coming out. I'm not sure if this screw has to come out to remove the stuff we're doing next, so I'm actually going to put it back in for now. And if we can't get it apart, then I'll take it back out later. And that's just to simplify, so I know all the liquid's coming out of one place. I think next we just have to start taking the rest of it off. There's your mounting your socket plate. Won't need that currently, so take that off. This is all connected, it looks like. So next thing is to start taking these out, but these, I really have to get the screwdriver size right on this, because they're very, very thin and unforgiving. Okay. Fuck. Okay, there's one. Damn, that's gonna strip. New gamersnexus shower head. Sort of really tempted to start going the brute force, like pull it out with pliers method. Oh, it's holding us. Oh, there's a screw. Got it. Hidden screws. Okay. There's another part. There's where that 90 double elbow I talked about is. So elbow 1, elbow 2, that's what allows the swivel while also being pushed outside of the pump rather than straight out of the top like the Corsair Gen 5 units are. So we are done with this half of the unit. This can go away for the better, really. So if I drill through the head of a screw, something went over there. It's still holding this thing on. Got all the heads of the screws off. There we go. Look at that. I'm sure it's exactly how they disassemble it at the factory. So what we've got is basically these. Okay, a few things. These screws are really soft metal. These are extremely easy to strip. I knew that going into it. Fortunately, I also don't care. So that means that there's really no downside to, trying every screwdriver I've got easily accessible. And if it still strips, then screw it. We'll just, well, not screw it. We'll do the opposite. We'll drill it. So that's what we ended up with. Plate's obviously a bit bent from my endeavors, but you get the idea. The format here is the same as the other Ace-Tech pumps in the past. So basically you've got a little cover here that goes over the micro fins. I've explained this many times before. If you've heard it, I'm sorry. But basically there's a ton of micro fins in here, and there's little channels on the sides. The liquid goes through the fins like this. So the bottom of the plate touches the component, CPU or GPU, conducts the heat, spreads through the fins. You want as much surface area as possible to dissipate the heat most efficiently. And then liquid goes through the fins, carries the heat up and out of the tubes. And this basically helps with pressure, helps keep the pressure high through those fins. You can see that the two pieces go together like that. So that's how they mate. And that pretty much handles the cooling aspect of it. There's channels way in here, both sides, down there. Might be one other one. Definitely down there, and that's where you get the liquid coming back up and out of these, in and out of these tubes, or I should say these sort of barbs, or barb housing anyway. So that is the, let's rephrase that. That was the Kraken X42 NZXT. I'm sorry, pretty cool engineering though. So again, this is kind of the most important or most interesting aspect of the whole thing. This is NZXT's design PCB with the LEDs on it and a nice circle pattern. Emits that light pretty evenly through the mirrored finish. And then you've got some side lights as well, things like that. We'll have more coverage of this thing though in terms of like actual cooling performance pretty soon. I've got all 3 units coming in. Testing versus the H100 IV2, which is the direct Gen 5 competitor, and the some of the other stuff, Predator 280 from EK. So that's what we got for you. Patreon link, the post-roll video. As always, if you would like to help fund the purchase of more screwdrivers that are good for this. I mean, I have a lot of screwdrivers, but very weak screws and not quite a perfect fit. Alternatively, if you'd like to fund the purchase of a new, whatever this size drill bit is, because it snapped at the end. So, yeah, that's our content. Thank you to our sponsors for paying for new drill bits. I will see you all next time. Subscribe, links in the description below for more information. Leave a comment if you want to let us know what you think. Check back soon for the review. I'm going to get out of here before I hit my head on this. See you next time.